do you have any members that are not familiar with Autodesk software? Generally, Autodesk, that includes AutoCAD, Revit, Civil 3D, Advanced Steel, because there is an interface, mostly it's almost the same, so some items could be similar. So if it is okay that everyone at least is a little bit familiar with some of the Autodesk software, then the better. At least maybe you will not, some of these items will not be new to you. So I'm going to start with let me do this while I'm seated, but I will stand up when it's necessary. So I'm going to start with what I think some versions have an A here. Is the presentation visible to everyone? It's not sharp enough? Is that really better? Is that better? Please, can everyone see?
Yeah, I can see.
It is better than the previous one, but is it visible? Is it? I can use 100%. 100.
So I show this one.
It was at 115 previously. Oh, let me get to 720.
Just check the display settings.
I want
The duplicate mode, can it record the screen recording? Can it record the duplicate?
yeah.
You've tested the video, it works.
I will test the video.
Can you check if you can
We don't do the back end of this. It's a bit. I wanted to increase the font of that because the font was very small.
Yes, okay.
Guys, is that better? Can everyone see? Especially the text.
It's fair.
It's better. I doubt it's going to be actually very good, but I want something that you can be able to work with.
It's fair.
It's fair. Guys in the back, can you be able to see? Okay. This is better. It's okay. So it's not going to be entirely clear, but at least since you already have your PCs, you can try to track some of the items that you are going to be displayed. If you can't see something very well, please you let me know so that I can be able to read for you from here. But I wanted a user interface that we can all relate with. Okay, let's use this one. All right, my instance, we are going to we are going to begin with explaining the user interface items, beginning with this icon here. Now, this icon from the previous version, I think it's an A. Like for some Autodesk software, it's an A. I think from the version 2020, it became a C later on. I think they went through a rebrand, something like that. Yeah. So even if you have an A, you shouldn't be worried that you probably have something different. So this A here, it's like a file icon. In Autodesk, they usually refer this as a big A, but no, it differs from one software to the other. Anyway, so we have this This is where you're trying to manage entirely your drawing. So for example, if you want to create a new drawing, we can use this icon. Always there. Of course, there are some other shortcuts like Control N when you're trying to create a new drawing. So you can create a new drawing by clicking on this icon. Then they will tell you to choose which template you would like to use. Now here there are usually two templates. We have Imperial and Matrix. So for Imperial is a system where they use inches, feet, yards in terms of measurements. And basically the largest countries who use this, it's the US. So in cases whereby you're dealing with US projects, it's better if you choose the template for Imperial. Uganda, since most of our establishment designs were made by or borrowed from the UK, we usually use the matrix since they also use the matrix. So you can choose the matrix, you click open, then the user interface will be customized according to what you need to use. Excuse me. Okay. So once you're done that, just know that everything that you're going to be working with is going to be in meters, kilometers, millimeters, centimeters, and all that. So in case I'm drawing a line or something like that, that value they are showing you is always in meters. So in case if I chose the Imperial template, that value they will be showing you could be in terms of feet. So in case you're working with someone from the US or it's an US agency and they have made their own design, it is better if you first check the settings before you carry on. There are some other apps that they do freelancing whereby in freelancing you find that you'll get a US customer. Then they will be able to show you their either land plots or whatever, and it's already in feet. So you'll be able to use the Imperial template. So that is it for creating a new drawing. Equally, still with this same panel, you can look at different drawings that you've already created, the ones that you've recently visited. Then we have for opening. Now opening is generally opening up a new, while you're opening up a new drawing. That's what they use. That drawing can be in different file extensions. It can be a standard template, it can be an XDF file, it can be a DWT file. So in case you're getting it from a different software per se, say Revit, and you're exporting it to Civil 3D, the file extension may differ. Or someone has given you from a different version, the file extension may differ. So these are the file extensions. You first look at the file extensions that can be opened or imported in. Then you analyze before you choose a certain file to open. Then we have save. We are all familiar with the save button. Equally save as. Saving as could be an existing drawing per se, or even saving as a new drawing where you search for where you entirely want to put your drawing. So you can either save as or you first save the drawing. So save as can allow you to save your file in different file formats. If, for example, I was exporting to someone who's doing a structural analysis or anything like that, I could probably save as a DXF file. Or you can save a drawing as a standard template file. So if, for example, I've done a drawing and I want to save the same styles that I have worked with, I can choose to save that drawing as my standard drawing. So this is where you start saving as. Also for people who have lower versions of the software that you're using, you can try it. For example, here, of course, here we're using Civil 3D 2020, but you can still save that drawing in a lower version, say Civil 3D 2019, or a lighter version of 2013, 2010, so that you can export to someone who has a lower version, or sometimes you don't know to the person you're giving it to. So it's better to always explore these options. Sometimes some software that you're exporting to, that could be 3ds Max, it could be InfraWorks, it could be allowing a different file extension rather than the DWG. So you can try to check, or you check with the client or the other terms of reference, in whatever form they would like to open that file in. Like these days we are familiar with the term BIM. So while you're exporting set Navisworks, it could be in reference to a different file extension. So you can explore these options while you're trying to do the saving. Okay, so then we have the exporting. Now in exporting, literally, just like the way you see savers, you're exporting in different file extensions or exporting a PDF. So you can look at those. For example, if you're done compiling the project and you've done some of the layouts, then you can save a PDF of the layouts that you've done, since you want to maybe either go and print or something like that, or share a portable version that someone can even open with a phone. So there are far many different ways, including DFX files. Then you have an IFC file, which is an industrial foundation classes file. Now this specific file extension is a BIM-based file extension. So once you want to exchange your file as a BIM file, most softwares right now have this option of exporting your file as a BIM file or an IFC file. So for example, AutoCAD, you can still transfer your drawing to AutoCAD, which doesn't have the same properties as the way you see Autodesk software. It can still open this software without having any problems. So you export it as an IFC file. This is basically for BIM. In case you're exporting to a different software that some other person might be having. That could be a geotechnical engineer, that could be a structural engineer, that could be an architect. You can export that. There are other formats that you can explore. Those other formats could include exporting your file to maybe 3ds Max for someone to render the animation or something like that, or to InfraWorks for further formats. So this also helps us to allow us to explore different file formats depending on the drawing settings that you want to exploit. Then we have publish. Publish encounters plotting and batching of different items of your layouts. Sorry, this is still having some bit of lag. By publishing, basically, for example, if you have a ready printer that is given to you, you can try to first arrange your drawings according to how you want them to be printed. You have your drawing lists, then you can publish either the PDF or something like that. Then you look out for the different items that you'd like to export. I think this shall be explored later as we're doing the plan production. Then including also printing, in case you want to plot. You have your page setup. You can come and explore what page setup you'd like to use. This varies from different sizes, whether you want an A1, an A2, an A3, depending on whichever person you're giving this information to. If you're going to be presenting this information to the people who do approval, there are standard formats to which you have to have your pages set up. Then we have other things like 3D printing. For those that have 3D printing, you will have, if you have 3D printers, there's a format they would expect your model to be in. Then you can connect your 3D printer to your computer, then you export the model to what you want to do. It can be actually a road, a 3D model of the road that you can export to a 3D printer, and then you explore different possibilities. Then you have drawing utilities. These include drawing settings. You have units, drawing, when you want to compare different drawings, depending on what you have. Then you have things like purging, recovery. This is where you can explore some of these items. This can be also, we shall explore some of these while we are also going through the software. Then you can equally also close the software or exit Civil 3D later, in case you done. So when you come to these items here, which is a title bar, this title bar has literally the same, it has shortcuts of almost some of these same items, as you can see here. For example, here in new, we have this icon to represent new. Then opening file, it has the same icons here, including also saving of the drawing. These are just like quick icons in case you don't want to open up here. Then you have mobile version to save as a mobile version. Then you have the plotting. Then you have the undo and redo. As we explore, then we have also this Civil 3D toggle. So if I'm to extend this, this is where you can easily change the different modes. For example, we're in the mode of Civil 3D. We can choose to go to the drafting and annotation mode, which opens up an interface that is close to looking like AutoCAD, in case you're just doing some bit of draft works. These are assumptions that, for example, you're given to do structures for culverts. Then instead of going where you won't find the modeling tool or the drafting tools, in Civil 3D, you can come and use this format. This software is usually called Autodesk AutoCAD Civil 3D. It's called AutoCAD because it's also built on the same formats of AutoCAD. So as you can see here, you don't have other items that you saw on the Civil 3D menu bar. As you can see here, you have manage, survey, rail, transparent, infraworks, collaborate. Once I switch to my drawing and annotation tool, it entirely changes the user interface to look like an AutoCAD user interface. So the same with 3D modeling. Now this is drafting, but in 3D version. Now where instead you're drawing a rectangle, in this case you'll be drawing a box or a cylinder, or generally you've converted all the 2D elements to 3D. So all the editing tools here will be able to change. Even the language changes. As you can see, the menu bar has different items from what we had initially. So this is the reason as why the software is bigger while you're installing it, because it's capacitated with multiple instruments. Then we have planning and analysis. This one is also another user interface for those that do hydrology. So once you're using with ArcGIS for surveyors, you can connect together with Autodesk. Then you explore your designs according to what you've agreed with the different terms of references. So here also the user interface is customized to match to what the person is going to use the software for. But right now we are going to mostly look at Civil 3D. So here it displays also the name, including the file extension. Of course, here we are working with a new drawing, which is drawing 3.dwg. Most of this Autodesk software usually use a DWG, which is, I think, a short form for drawing. Maybe some of them use DXF files. So even though the architect is having maybe, or another engineer is having a different software, if they want it to be opened in Civil 3D, they can save it as a DWG. Then we have one for searching for different keys. This is a search bar. Then we have the one for signing in. In case you have an Autodesk account, you can sign in your account from here. In case you want to explore other items like purchasing licenses, looking at their applications, or looking for their new products, then you can look at these options. The same with this for shopping. They also have a store. Now what this store has is that there are some items that specifically some engineers use. For example, if generally, say like Autodesk doesn't have, say, grids, so you might find that someone customized their own application that you can install. It's more of like a simple plugin that you can find on their app store that you can use, install, then you can explore using that same item. If it's not available, it kind of eases work since you get in, once you get into the Autodesk family or fraternity, or in most of their forums. Then you have the maximization, sorry, the closing. This is for either maximizing or minimizing or making the toggle small. I'm sure you're already familiar with some of these items. Then there's one for help. You can ask for help. You can look through their tutorials, their videos, their offline resources, and all their learning resources. So now we come to our menu bar. This menu bar up here. This menu bar has different items that go up to this side. Yeah. So we have the home. The home has all the palettes and the icons for design. Then you have an insert. Insert, that means that you're bringing in items from different, say you're importing in points, or you're importing in generally information or data from a different software, or from like fresh data that you've collected from the field. This is why you explore some of those items. Then you have annotate. Annotate is generally for labeling. You're adding text, you're adding dimensions, you're adding leaders, you're adding tables. So this is where you explore some of those. Then you have modification tools. These are like tools that you can use to modify your drawing. Some of these are shortcuts from this design or our home menu. As you can see, adjusting PI. We shall look at PI once we are doing our alignments. Then you have the analysis. You have ground data analysis. Then you have some bit of design analysis. There are more items even right below. Then you have volume and material analysis, quantity takeoff analysis, then station analysis, where you have measuring of different angles. There's even a calculator in case you need to calculate something. We have some of these, including the inquiry. Then you have the view. The view has some of these items that control what you're looking at. For example, you have the unsaved view, like just the way you see here. We have top. You can explore some of these in case you want to change some. Sometimes when you open this software, some of these items are not viewed anywhere. So in case you want to still control your view or your drawing display qualities, you can access some of those items from here. Then, for example, there's usually, for example, this, you can't see this, but this is just from this item here. Now here it is put as a shortcut from here, as you can see. I can explore the different formats from here too. So generally, as you can see here, conceptual change, just like the way you see here. Then we have the coordinate system. This is a UCL. It's like a universal control locator for whichever format that you're dealing with. For example, we are in 2D, so you can see the Y and X. In case you were in 3D, you could also have the Z being displayed. So in case you're rotating in 3D format, it can be able to show you in which form you're having your coordinates. So this also controls that part of the coordinates. Then we have the mode of configurations. Then we have the tool space, which is this display here. In case I click on it, this display goes off. You click on that, yeah, as you can see. Some of these same items, we have shortcuts also on these palettes around here. But most of them, the biggest from this view, just like where you see we have prospector. From here, this is Prospector. In case I click on it and highlights, on my tool space it will disappear. Then including settings. So in case your tool space has disappeared, obviously our tool space is what we control some of the objects, the Autodesk objects from for Civil 3D. So in case you don't want your drawing settings, you can make them disappear from there. You have our survey database, then you have our tool space. So in case that none of them is highlighted or clicked on, the tool space will not be able to display. So as I click on Prospector, when I click on tool space, it will disappear. Then you have our property, palette, then you have our tool palette from here, where you can explore different items. Then once you want to control the navigation of these other tools, you have a UCS. UCS is that icon that makes us to understand in which file format we are in or which mode that we are dealing with. Then you have a view cube. This view cube, the view tube. It's controlled from here once you want to display. Then you have a navigation bar. This navigation bar, in case you don't find it, you just come to view and then you click on this navigation bar, should be able to show up. I usually do this because you find that once you're dealing with different people, you can go to use someone's computer and then you find some of these items have disappeared. So it's better if you understand how the user interface works. So the same here. Sometimes you find that someone's computer is displayed this way, where you find that most of the drawings are displayed in either tiles or something like that, or vertically. In case you have a bigger screen and you want to explore the different ways that you can arrange your drawings, then you do that. But once you want to exit that, you maximize your drawing so that you can go back to the same interface as usual. So this is where we control our tabs. These tabs for the drawing, this is where you control them from, in case you want to keep switching. So just in case your drawing opens up in a different tabular format, you come to your view and then you go to interface, then you change that format from there. So let's move on to manage. In management, we have what we call data shortcuts. I think data shortcuts will be explained later, but these help us to add or to create some bit of shortcut for some of our items that we're dealing with. That could be a corridor, that could be a surface, that could be an alignment. Sometimes you can create a data shortcut that some people can use, where you have, say, points imported in, and you've created, say, a surface, but you want to have different perspective from different engineers. Now, once you create data shortcuts, people will always be referring to that data. Once the default information of that data changes, it will also equally update the other individuals. So, for example, I have a file format that I've imported in, and I've created a surface with it. And then you have two engineers that have different ways of finding alternatives to the route. Now, instead of using the same drawing, you can just share a data shortcut for the surface, and everyone can draw their own alignments. Now, once you change information about the surface, it automatically update on the other side. Then we have the action recorder. This is for recording maybe a bit of the animation or some other information like that. Then we have the customization. In case you want to customize your own user interface, you can come and explore some of these tools. Some bits of the menu may not be able to show up. So you come and explore some of these tools. Then we have applications. In case someone has coded their own application per se, you can be able to load your application from here. Some people would like to customize their own user interface to fit a certain standard or even automate some repetitive tasks. So you can get someone to code for you a little bit, then you run that application from here, then can be directly installed into your Civil 3D interface. Same if you're into coding, you can still run your own. You can still run your own script from here. Then they can allow you to upload that script as an application. So we have what they call VAB, which is Visual Basic Editor. This one is an IDE, which is an integrated development environment for developing applications. So here it's majorly people who do coding that usually understand this. So in some in some firms, you find that they would like to customize the settings of the drawing. That could include also probably if someone is customizing standards that are different from what they have given you by default, they can try to run, they can either visit someone who do coding and then they try to customize. Or equally, if you're getting an Autodesk support from their firms, if you're a registered client, they can be able to allow you to explore these items and also maybe even do the coding for you to meet your own standards. Actually, when they're releasing the new versions, what they're doing is that the request that the client will make, that say in a certain country, I don't find this item better or it's not simplified for me enough. When some of those requests are more frequent, they will go back, they try to add some of those items, and then they release it in the next version. So you might find that actually Civil 3D 2020 and 2023, they almost look similar, but they are very, very small edits that you find that are quite a bit different. And it's until someone that actually need that item, that's when you realize the differences. Obviously, the user interface may not really has changed as much, but you might find that those small things that they would have made easier. So it's also easier. It's also better if you try to explore the newer versions of the software. You might find that there is a task that you've been doing and it really takes you a lot of time. You try to understand, or you watch some of their YouTube videos once they are trying to go through what is new entirely in the software. It can also be a BIM integration that you don't really know about that simplifies some of your transfer in terms of information from one software to the other. So then we have CAD standards. Yeah, you explore in different standards and different layers in case you want to customize your different layers. This is where you explore them from. Each object in this software is given a layer or is formed in the layer. Now layers help you to control your object, the display of your object. That is in terms of color and in terms of display. So in case you want to utilize one of the items, that maybe for example I want to only see my alignment rather than a corridor, I can turn off the rest of the layers and I can only display the corridor layer. Then I can make my edits and then display the other layers later. Move on. Then we have for styles. We have importation of styles. When I'm talking about styles is say this kind of style. This is a band. These are bands, and these bands are majorly placed in different forms. In case you're to do, say, before you have some of these styles ready, if you're to do a normal profile creation, it's going to be displayed in a different format. But then you can customize your own styles. Obviously, different entities or different companies have their own styles. Styles just generally control the display of information. So I can have my own way of presenting information, and I have my different styles that I'm going to be using. So you can either explore importation of those styles. For example, if you're new in the firm and there is a certain style they use, you don't have to create those styles from scratch. You would rather import them from a different drawing that is already existing. So the same thing with paging, the same thing with reference. You can still manage your reference from a different template that the firm is already using. We have defining our pen sets. You can define your pen sets from here. We shall explore that later. Then you have Dynamo, which is a plugin for displaying different items. Now, before Civil 3D 2020, Dynamo wasn't really part of the items that they displayed. You can just run that in a custom way, but some of these are already integrated. Now Dynamo helps you in displaying, generally doing a little bit of displaying of signs along the road, symbols. In case you want to do a little bit of navigation, it just helps you in laying out of information. It shall also be discussed a bit later, but may not be explored as much. Then you have in output. Output, we have plan production. This is when you create your view sets, creating your sheets, the ones for, you create your sheets for plan and profile, then you create your also your section sheet, especially for exporting your, in case you want to export your sections. This is where I create them. Then we have for plotting, like I explored the same with understanding your plotting formats, defining your panes and defining your different layouts for the printing pages. So the same are being explored, like I explained this side, the same items that we have here. Generally here you are putting out information. Then we have exporting. Now here we can export different file formats. You can export to InfraWorks. I don't know how many guys know what InfraWorks is. By show of hands, do any of you know the software called InfraWorks? You've heard of it? Okay. So InfraWorks it's another software for also roads, but for it designs in 3D, in a 3D format. You can literally just draw just like the way you see, say the simplest would be like AutoCAD. You can it's like a real-time drawing 3D of your road. So they are trying to customize it in a way. Initially it used to be something for demonstration of work, where you can export your information from Civil 3D, you take to InfraWorks, and then you organize your work. But these days they are trying to make sure that all the settings that you have in Civil 3D are taken to InfraWorks, and then you can just draw your road in 3D, because entirely Civil 3D is a 2D based drawing for generally draft works. But now InfraWorks can be integrated with Civil 3D, whereby I can draw my road in InfraWorks, then I bring for drafting this other side. It will be better if you try to explore it maybe later in that day. Then we have Land XML. This is also for taking your information. For example, the ones for setting out data. You can maybe you want the points for setting out the center line. You can export them in a Land XML file or in a report format. Then you can still export your Civil 3D drawing. There are different file formats that you can export in, depending, including 3ds Max for rendering or animation or something like that. Then you have survey. Survey will have the survey database for generally looking at survey information from the surveyors. You can arrange your items. For example, you can bring in your survey instruments, connect them to the PC, and you try to do a survey database. For example, here in Prospector, let me see. If you come here, we have a survey database, then you have the instrument database, then you have the figures, and then the line work. So you can explore these items once you're bringing in your information. And for example, if you're a surveyor and you want to control your information, before you give it to a Civil 3D expert, you can, or a highways engineer, you can control your information from here. We shall explore that quite a bit later. Generally, this is for survey user experience. Then you have Rails. Rails is generally for creating railways. This has the items for creating railways. That includes the creating of be like creating an alignment for a railway. So since you are going to be designing highways, I won't really talk much about this, but once you want to understand this better, you can explore from a railway designer. Then we have transparent tools. Transparent tools, these are different tools that can be executed once you already have one of existing format that you're using, or there's an existing command that you're already running. If I'm creating, say, an alignment, but then I would like to explore creating a different item, then you can explore some of these tools. They also arrange this other site as shortcuts. Yeah, you can try to look at that. Perhaps once you are doing the drawing, you can explore some of these. I've talked about InfraWorks. So, like I said, InfraWorks is the 3D version of having your loads created. You can install InfraWorks once you have for 3D. So since maybe if you want to run back and forth or exchange of information with InfraWorks, they will allow you to launch InfraWorks from here. You can change the settings to configure with InfraWorks from here. You can open up a model of InfraWorks from here. You can import an InfraWorks file. You can export to InfraWorks. Then you can look at the product itself. What does it detail from also looking at this icon. Then you have the collaborate menu. This is where you want to share views. For example, if you want to share a mobile version of your drawing, you can use some of these items if you have internet. And this guy is allowed having it's like an Autodesk, it's an AutoCAD version of web. In case I don't have, say, AutoCAD installed on my computer or even on my phone. Obviously, sometimes you don't have them installed on our phones. Someone can share you a web version, or you can upload that drawing to a web, so that someone can easily see. Of course, most of the phones that we have can go to web. Then you can be able to open that drawing, maybe in the form of a link, and you explore the different items. You could be on the site, and maybe an engineer is sending you some information. They can be able to share in a different view format. Then you have the drawing comparison. This one highlights the differences in between two recent drawings in case you're doing maybe revision of the initial drawings. You can explore this item. Then you want to publish your surface. You could want to publish your surface to BIM. Like I said, BIM, since these days is very common, you can publish your, for example, a surveyor can create, can get extract points from the site. Maybe it could be a terrain surface. Then you try to create that surface either from points or could be a digital elevation model. Then you publish that file to someone who wants to use it. Say if you want to exploit to BIM, that could be like in Navisworks. You want to share it and maybe integrate it with other drawings. You can publish your file to something else. Or you can publish it to an ArcGIS. ArcGIS, we know ArcGIS is surveyors. It can be able to deal with digital elevation models or TIFF files, or they're called ASTR files, for showing the differences in the terrain or the heights of the surface. Then there is checking for status. In case you're doing an online collaboration with different engineers, you can be able to share your information also through BIM 360. It can be in a downloaded file format that you can have. Now BIM 360, and there is another one called Autodesk 360. Autodesk 360 will be able to manage your files. Once it can manage, it's like a drive. It can be able to manage your files, for example, then can be able to upload in once you have the account. But then 360, it can be able to integrate with different file formats that the person can be able to share with. 360 is usually that interface whereby people can bring in different files. Once you're collaborating, people can be able to bring in different files on the same project, but they are doing different collaborations. So once you're working with, say, an international client, but you don't have an online interface that you're interacting them with, 360 is that solution that should be able to update your information that you're sharing back and forth with the other people. Then we have the help tunnel tool. Just like I explored here or explained here, you can join their different forums, you can ask for help, you can look out for their tutorials or videos and their learning resources using this toolbar, or you can even learn about InfraWorks. We have our add-ins, we have our app manager, we have our featured apps. Add-ins could be from their app store. Like for example, you can look at from the app store here. If you have internet, they can be able to show you their different products that are most requested or most downloaded. Once you find that product useful or that application useful, then you download that app. Yeah, then we have Express tools. Express tools are like, they just helps you also in compilation, for example, creating blocks, exploring attributes of the different objects, stretching multiple things, looking at movement. They're generally Express tools, like those tools that you're most likely to be using while you're making your drawing. But instead of looking for them in a vaster arrangement, you can come to your Express tool and then you look for them from this side. They're like quick. Once you want to break off, you know that symbol that shows discontinuity, or you want to hash, like there are so many items that you can look at here. Then you have geolocation. Once you've signed in, geolocation can be able to turn on your maps or turn off your aerial maps. If you have an account, or geolocate your drawing from here, you can edit your drawing location by either from a map, or you can import in a different map from your file. Some of those files can come from a surveyor. Surveyor usually have, say, from ArcGIS or QGIS, they usually have some of these files. So in case you want to refer, or you can equally get them from GeoMapper, import them from here. Then you can orient whereby, in case you want to refer your, say, your drawing, you can place a pin somewhere by actively using this tunnel. You can, generally for georeferencing, you can tag in a pin from somewhere here up to somewhere there, then you georeference according to that. There's things of marking positions, then adding your aerial maps within this area, within your drawing. Then you can also even capture a certain image within your drawing. So I've explained some of the items, except I think for this one, which we shall be mostly exploring. Now here we have what they call ground data. Now I'm going to widen this a bit by controlling my display here, so that I can explore further. Do you have any questions so far? Any questions, please, before I carry on? It's either you've understood or you have not understood. Any questions? Should I carry on?
adding those other icons that are not there, like geolocation. Sometimes we need to add it here. Mine doesn't have it. And then under Express Tools, under add-ins, what you find out keywords is not mine. Yeah, only have to have manager. So how do we add in those other few things?
Which version of Figure 3 are you using? Sorry? Okay, for geolocation, it's about the setting of the drawing that you have. If you go to, I think I was going to explore that later, but it's okay if I explain it now. If you go to your drawing settings, once you go to edit your drawing settings, and then you geolocate your drawing by inputting in the zoning, the value of zoning. For example, here you can explore putting in Uganda. You have Uganda in here. Okay. So if I put in Uganda and then I add it, and you click OK, this automatically shows up. By default, once you've opened the software, it's not there until you add the drawing settings. So this should be able to arrange your drawing according to a geolocated format. So generally, you're trying to set your drawing so that in case you want to use the reference of the map, then this will be able to show up. Okay? Yeah. So for manager, for some of these items, some of them are based on the not appearing. Some of them are based on the either some bit of installation. You can have some bit of missing files, or they can just choose to disappear. There's another format you can make them appear, but it's a longer one. Also, sometimes when you choose the template, some templates make them disappear or something like that, based on my experience. However, I can't lie to you how you have to go per, because some different laptops or different computers, there's a way they install their things differently. It varies according to your architecture of the computer, or how maybe your Windows that you're using. I don't know. Also, sometimes even the file formats that we download from different files, so from different websites, may have some items missing, or some of those, the installation format doesn't allow some items to be installed, something like that. Yeah. So it can be varying from one person to the other. I can't say this is the general way of approach, but maybe personally can get some time and try to find a way of putting this together. The most important icons, I think. Do you have output? Okay. I think from home, insert, annotate, modify, analysis, view. I think up to somewhere output here. Most of these are the most crucial ones. After that, some of them could be or may not really be as used while you're trying to do your management or drawing file. So I wanted to jump into explaining. I think I left out the menu. I just hinted it a little bit. So the menu is arranged in a format whereby it, first of all, these palettes, they controls the palette of this user, this interface of our tool space. Then where I can easily control, that includes the tool space for prospector, for settings, for survey instruments, and then for reports, which is the toolbox. Then you have our tool palette. This tool palette usually, depending on which format that you're using, it has items. Can we be able to see that? Let me move it somewhere here. So it has items. For example, now this one is for basically having assemblies. Sorry. Okay. So basically this is for assemblies. Then we have some of those for materials. You can look at maybe if you want to explore render materials, we have for multiple blocks, we have for generic lights, we have for the other first one was for sub-assemblies, then you have one for importation of sub-assemblies. We have for annotate and design, in case you want to add in a few things like for those that use different instruments for highlighting, say, doors and whatever, but this could be for architects. Then we have 3D marks for drawing, arcs, modify. There's one that is a bit more crucial. I think it's this one. This one has road signs, in case you're trying to place road signs. We have bollards. It has a lot of items that you can explore. It can look like your library for including trees, shrubs. It's a lot you can try to explore, including also buildings in case you want to add them in your drawing. You can try to explore some of these items. But mostly by default, it is set to be in matrix sub-assemblies. Once you go to Imperial, this will be calibrated differently. Like I said, obviously in Imperial, you'll be dealing in feet, yards, and inches. So once you click on the sub-assemblies for matrix, their properties are going to be set in a different format. So we can stick maybe by default, they're usually set in the matrix, so in the matrix format.
Which one has the road sign?
Blocks. So, is your tool palette open? If it's open, if it's open, you right click.
Yes.
Then you go to several multiple view blocks. Are you there? Can you be able to see them? Yeah. You can explore most of these. You never know which one can work for you. Okay, you never know what you may need to add into your drawing. So you can explore one by one during your free time. You get? But by default, we can leave this in sub-assemblies. Okay?
I don't know, can they be edited? Like when you look at the direction of motorway,
Sorry?
can they be edited?
Can they be edited?
Yeah, the signs.
The signs? I've never tried to edit one of them, to be honest. But I believe they are customizable.
Especially direction of the signs.
So, I double click on it. It's possible to edit them. Let's try first everything. Okay, I can skip the rest. the hack that I used to use is that once you find the library, some of these items are in, right? Because they're already hardly coded within the software. But if you find the folder that some of these images are in, you can be able to change the format of that, or you can be able to customize that object. Then the other side, they can be able to find that image, as long as you don't tamper with the format, sorry, the file extension per se. Yeah, I believe it's possible. It's just that may it just take you a few rounds back and forth. Yeah. So that is for that is for the tools tool palette. Then we have properties. The properties is done for exploring the properties for any object that you have. Say for example this. Let me change this back to wireframe mode. Okay. For example, this, I can be able to check the properties of this line. Either right click and go to properties, or once I highlight that line, I can be able to click on this for properties and understand. Then I can be able to change either the color to red, or change to a different color, or increase the line weight or the thickness. Then equally here they are showing you the geometry. For example, at the distance it is from the 0, line mark for both the X and then the Y axis. Now for Z, equally they are showing it 0 since it's on the ground. It's already showing it 0. Then the end axis, the length, and then the Y values, including the angle in case you have the angle. Also the in 3D visualization, in each form you would like to see it, you can be able to explore by layer. You refer to a different layer, so that can be able to be rendered in that form of item. So after all palettes, the other explored palettes from here. After palettes, you can look at the ground data. Generally, the ground data is your information that you first work with before you do your designs for either the highway or the road. Some of this ground data includes having your points. So you can either import in, or you create your points manually from using this toggle. You can either create points from an intersection. You can create points from an alignment, a surface, a slope, interpolation, or you can entirely look at the point creation tool. Then you have surfaces. You can create a surface from a detail elevation model per se. You can just create a surface with which you can change its properties. You can change from the surface from a detail elevation model. For those surveyors from either QGIS or ArcGIS can be able to export whichever format they have to a detail elevation model, so you can be able to just directly form your surface from a detail elevation model, or can be an online. There's one that is called USGS. It's usually for down in case you want a surface of a certain area that you haven't yet visited. There are already radar scanners that were explored back in the day, like in the 1950s, whereby they were trying to map out or create a surface from different areas. Now that website has that information where you can just download a detailed elevation model. You can actually have a detailed elevation model for a state in the US, and then you import it and you create your own surface depending on that detailed elevation model. Then you can create a surface from point files. Now point files, these are files that you can scan using your phone. You can scan a surface using your phone in case you have like a radar scanner. For those that have, I think, the iPhone 13, by default it has a radar scanner that can be able to scan around and form a 3D mapping of a certain area. So what it forms is what they call a point file, a point cloud file. Now that point cloud files can be edited in another software which we call Recap. Back in the day, it used to come with Silver 3D. For those that explored Recap, I think with version of 2018 it has recap as a different it comes in as a different application, so you can be able to import in that file from either your phone. Yeah, if you've scanned maybe a certain area, you've visited the area but you don't have a surveyor with you, you can be able to use your iPad or your iPhone, or it can be a different tool that has a radar scanner. Then you can be able to map up your area, which you bring in as a point file. Then, since creating tools, there you can even import in a TIN file, which is a translation interpretation network file, with which some surveyors form their surfaces using this file. Also, from GIS information, you can have GIS data, with which you can create your surface. From grading, you can create your surface from a corridor, so on and so forth. We are going to be exploring some of these items, perhaps, as we go ahead with the software. Then you have traversing. Traversing is entirely attached to your survey database, where they do back and forth with the survey instruments. Then we have parcels. We move on to, after you've created your ground information or ground data, for example, either you imported in your file, your point file, or you've created your surface, or you already have a surface that you've created from your files, then you can now move on to the design bit of the software. So the design bit of the software, we start with parcels. Do you guys know parcels? Or in some software, I think it's sites. Parcels are those that you use to create, maybe you can customize land division per se. I can have, if it's a real estate and someone needs to divide their land into different plots, you can be able to use parcels to do that. So generally, you can either create a parcel, so you can form a parcel from an object, or it could be a line work, or from the right of way. Whereby, if in case I have a plot of land and I want to take the road through it, I can be able to divide my alignment. I can be able to design that, say that plot of land into different parcels by using my alignment or my right of way, depending on what you want to achieve. Then we have alignments. General alignments here, you're looking at the geometrical horizontal alignment of the road, or it could be also a railway, or it could be a pipeline network or a pressure network. So this is where you create the alignment from. It can be from an object, a corridor, a pipe network, pressure point, or an existing alignment. You can also equally create offset alignments, connected alignments, also even create widening on these alignments. Then we have feature lines. Feature lines are generally lines that you can convert to become objects with which you can always refer to in your drawing. You can look at which we are going to be able to look at them as we explore our different design arrangements. Then also grading. Grading is for forming different, generally like for grading land. In case you have a land that is uneven, you can grade it to different file formats. Sorry, not file formats, but different elevation formats. I can grade my land to feel like a swimming pool. I can grade my land either to create some bit of curves. You can grade generally your surface accordingly. Then we have profiles. You can create a surface profiles from your alignment from a surface. What this does is that can be able to give you the cross section of your surface depending on the alignment. Or you can also create your profile. Your design profile, which is the geometrical vertical alignment in this case. So then we can explore the different ways of creating the profile later. Then we have our corridors. You can either create your corridor or rehabilitate your corridor. We shall create our corridors once we have all the objects that fit into creating a corridor. Then you have our intersections. Intersections include roundabouts, also includes approaches or junctions. Then we have assemblies. You can create your own assembly, or you can import in your own different assembly. Like I said, you can be able to create your assembly with the help of our tool prospector, where you adjust your different formats depending. Then you have a pipeline network in case you're trying to have your pipe networks arranged with your alignments or your road. This is where we explore some of those options. Then later, after you're done, you made your designs for the corridor, for the highway, for the intersection. Once you're done, you are supposed to start forming your profiles. So you can create a profile view format. Example profile view. An example could be, say this. This is a profile view. There are two things here. You have a profile. This is a design profile, which is a vertical alignment of reference. This is the proposed design alignment, which is vertical. Then you have an existing vertical alignment that is a cross section from the existing surface. Now, the presentation of these alignments is what we call a profile view. Now, this presentation of the elevation, then having your bands, which are your band sets, including maybe stations or whatever information I want to display. This display here is what we call a profile view. So once we want to create a profile view, this is the tool that we look at. You either want to create one profile view or want to create multiple profile views. Then after that, we can create our sample lines. Sample lines are cross-section lines through your corridor or your pipeline network. Or it could be your drainage systems for either along the road, or could be a drainage system for a certain individual format. But this is a cross-section. Rather than the section view of this road, which is a profile view, this will be the cross-section along your corridor in different chain edges. Then after you've created your profile view, your sample lines. Sample lines are section lines for the alignment. So once you've created those, you can now create your multiple views. That can be able to display, like the section views. The sample lines can be able to create the section lines. Then you can create your section views from those sample lines. So in case, if I want to show you what that means, like this is a section line, this is a sample line for the chain edge of kilometer 0 plus 160 meters. This is its cutting point, or its section line. So I've sectioned this, then I'm looking through my corridor in the other area. So in case I want to see what that section view entails, this display here is what we call a cross-section view of your alignment. So you have this indicating this will be indicating your existing surface. Then you have your cross-section cut through. So that's what we have for section views. I don't know if yours displays better with including words here in the different formats. Then we have our drawing tools. These ones are for generally aiding us in drawing geometry. We have lines, we have polylines, we have circles, we have ellipse, we have hashing tools for shading. Then you can either create other geometries like polygons, rectangles, squares, like that. Then you have our modification tools. These ones include moving, rotating, trimming, erasing, offsetting, rectangular arrays for multiplying your information, for scaling, for stretching. We have for mirroring, and then for copying. Then we have the layer version. In case you want to create different layers for your objects by arranging the different objects in your drawing, you can be able to either form layers, you can be able to change the layer information. For example, in Civil 3D, each and every tool, including, say, the alignment, the corridor, the surface, they're all given their default layers. So by default, you find all these layers being inserted them to you. Then in case you want to change, say, the alignment layer, in case you want to change each alignment in terms of color, I can be able to click on that alignment layer color, then I can be able to change that color straight from here and explore all those. So in case I have different layers, per se, if I draw, say, my this is already given a layer for concrete. If I form a different say dimensioning line, then I draw a line here. By default, some of these items already given those properties depending on the layer. So in case I have multiple items that I have here, and I would like to edit one of them, but it is already awarded to a different layer. So say here, and I would like to access only the default values of these items per se. So how does layers come in is that in case I only want to see these items of this layer, I can click on this item, then I isolate that layer. So once I isolate that layer, each and every object that is not awarded to this layer will be supposed to be able to hide or disappear. So for example, these are hidden and they are already locked, you can't be able to access them. So I can be able to edit these layers without any interference or anything like that. Then I can, if I want everything back, then I can unisolate. So this can help you to fasten your workflow. So in case I only just want this, you can actually customize these settings by hiding entirely the layer that you have isolated. For example, I can isolate this layer, then the rest of the items that are not awarded to that layer can be able to disappear. So these are some of the uses that you would like to see while you're having your workflow. These are some of the items that can be able to help you to integrate properly with your workflow. So let me unisolate. Yeah. Okay. So then you have the rest for the clipboard. Once you've copied something, you can be able to paste, cut, transfer or match different properties of the different objects that you have. Then you can select the mode. So generally, this is what we have on this the menu bar, and there are different items. So maybe I can move on to maybe this next part here. So if I'm talking about our tool space has 4 things. That includes the prospector, you have the settings, then you have the survey, then you have the toolbox. So this prospector itself it's like arrangement of all the objects that you use while you're doing your designs for. If you're making the designs for your drawing. So you have things like ground data, which include points, point groups, then you have surfaces, you have alignments, feature lines, sites, which are parcels in this case. Then you have catchment areas, you have pipe networks. So in case you have an item per se, for example, I have alignments. Alignments also customized according to their functionality, all their types. So you have, say, center line alignments, you have offset alignments, you have rail alignments, curve returns, then miscellaneous alignments. Then you have feature lines. So in case you want to access that information, you can be able to explore them from here. If I go to my drawing, this is an existing drawing that already has an alignment per se. As you can see, initially here, some of these they don't have that plus sign until you add that object within. For example, here, since I have a point file that I was referring to, my points are already showing. It already has information. In case you see this this plus sign, where it's like a drop down sign. Once you add information to your points and your point groups, you can be able to show up here. If you look at this drawing per se, this doesn't have that information yet. So here you can't see that drop down file, for example, on point groups. So since here I have information, I can be able to show, including your surface. My surface has information. So you have the surface, different names, including their definitions, as you can see. So here I already have a point group that I referred to define my surface. So it has more information, as you can see. Then including alignments, like you can see here, center line alignments inside. They don't have a plus sign or a drop down sign on them. So once I click on this alignment, as you can see, I have center line alignments. In the center line alignments, I can be able to see that I have profile view. I have some profiles. I can also even add spire elevations. I can have a sample line. Then including also this one already has some sample line group. There is a sample line group which you're referring to even on section view. Let me adjust this a little. So as you can see, I have a sample line group of a specific, say, alignment. Then that sample line group has even different sections that have different materials. So as you keep adding information within your prospector, it can be able. So as within your drawing, your prospector can be able to allow you to access some of that information. So in case I want to delete something, I would just go here, then I right click and delete maybe a point file that I've imported in. Rather than deleting one point in a bigger drawing, you can have multiple different groups of points. So I can just come here and delete a certain point group in case I no longer need it or something like that. Then you have sites, in case you have sites, in case you have even corridors, those that you've created. Different corridors will come with different assemblies, networks, datasets. As we keep adding these will also keep, our library will keep growing. Then we come to the settings. Settings, this one holds generally the settings for the different objects that you've seen here. For example, you have the alignment. When you come this side, the alignment settings are also included here, including the design check tables for the different designs that you want to consider. So once you're doing or you're creating, say, your alignments, you'll be able to award this alignment to a certain style or label style. So you can be able to edit that file, can be able to edit that list from here before you actually find it on the other side. This will make maybe sense a little bit later as we keep exploring these different items. Yeah, so they are all styles for all different items, from points, surfaces, profiles, sample lines, views. Each and every object that you'd like to create has different settings, including quantity takeoff, in case you want to have the different quantity criteria from earthworks. Then when you have your plan production, you can have your view frameworks. You create your sheets in whatever file format that you want, then including your view frames. Generally, this is for settings. Then our survey instrument, this is for creating your different survey database that you'd like to edit differently. You can include Dyneworks, you can have prefix database. Then this toolbox, this one deals with exporting of reports. For alignments, you can have exporting reports for stakeout reports. You can have corridor once you want to just maybe export your report for the volume along the corridor. Generally, this is the one that breaks down all the exportation of different reports and how you can manage them. For all the different items that we've talked about, or for all of the objects that you usually create your highways with. Then this is our tool space. Then now we can move on to these different taggles. You have one for model, where you model each and every item that you want to do. Then we have laying out. So for example, once you created your data set sheets, you can be able to lay them out before you export them. So you can use this layout formats to be able to express, maybe exploring for PDFs for printing or something like that. Then here we have a command tool, just in case you want to use a command line. For example, I would like to use a command line, say for grouping. Now instead of finding the icon for grouping, you would rather come here and maybe type in group. And then you can group the different elements that you would like to group, or edit a group, or edit a certain block or something like that. So this is the where you can, this command line is where you can type in the different commands for accessing some of the functionalities of the software. Then we have one for model. In case you want to explore, for example, here in your layouts, you can explore whatever is inside. You can add your layout from the model from here. Then you either choose whether you want to see the model or you want to see the paper. But since we don't have yet information here, we can look at that a bit later during upfront production presentation. Then you have other tools here, the most important ones. For example, for DraftWorks, you need the one for, say, restricting your angles to a specific angle. So restricting your line work or your drawing to a specific angle. For example, this one. We have restricting to 90 degrees. For example, this one only restricts to 90 degrees. Once I remove it, you can be able to have that flexibility of drawing my line or a my polyline, something like that. This one, you can be able to restrict your angles frame by frame. You can restrict you once you're drawing maybe a circular or you're trying to rotate a certain value, you can be able to restrict. Then we have the most important one is the snap tool. Snap tool can be able to snap at different points, whether it's a midpoint or a center or a node. You can just highlight on to whichever way you want to snap. What I mean by snapping is that once I want to continue this line, I can be able to snap it at its end or at its beginning. Now, if it's only restricted to the end and the beginning, I can also snap midway. So I'll come to this line and be able to snap midway. But once this is off, so midway is off, I can't really be able to find the midway. So this one's help. So they just help you to aid on your drawing in 2D or your draft work. It can also help you in quickening most of your decision making. For example, you have a circle, you want to snap in the middle. We shall explore these perhaps as we're doing our draft work, as we continue our designs. Then we have our, here we have our scales that we refer to. For example, our scale right now, it's referred to 1 meter this side. It will be on the ground to be representing maybe 1,000 meters. This is a scale that we'll be using. It can also help you in magnifying some of the items, and we shall explore that a bit later. Then this one is just the same as this, your workspace. Choosing which mode of workspace that you'd like to use, you can also find it somewhere here. So the rest of items, I haven't really used them as much, so I can't really tell a lot about them. Some of these help you to highlight on whatever items that you would like to see here. So for example, the grid, the snapping tool, most of these items are here. In case you want to add one of these items, you can just click on one of these. You mark against it so that it can be added. In case you're going to use it, can be added on your workflow. I think for now I've explored most of the points on the user interface that I find to be more critical. And I don't know if you have any questions. If you don't have any questions, please, then you close this session. So does anyone have any questions or something that you need to be highlighted again about? If there are no questions, then maybe try to inquire from the management if we either go for a lunch break or we carry on. Okay. So my assumption is that at least you've tried to highlight some of the things and you've tried to understand some of the items. Okay? I'm sure some of you knew some of them, but not most of them. But I hope they can be helpful afterwards. Okay. That's it. So I'm going to jump in and continue with your presentation. Sorry.